know if I should tell you this before lunch, but I will. It consisted of locusts and honey. Now, the honey I get. I can understand eating honey. But locusts, well, I don't know, they might be crunchy. I'm not sure. I don't know. But John the Baptist lived a life out in the wilderness. He was rough-hewn. His clothing was rough cut. And anyway, he takes on the ruler of the day and tells him he is living in sin. And John the Baptist faces those things and ends up being beheaded for God, for the cause of Christ. He loses his head. For most of us, that's a pretty serious thing, isn't it, you know? And I think of Stephen. Stephen was the first martyr after Jesus Christ had died on the cross. And as the Christian movement begins to make gains in the Jewish community and then into the Gentile world, we find that Stephen was stoned to death, which was a means the Jews would use to show their disapproval and their hatred and their antagonism, we might say, of life itself. And they stoned him to death. And the thing about we know of that story is that Paul, whose name was Saul, was considered a Gentile or a Jew of a high calling. And so he's standing there, and what he does as a representative of the Jewish faith, he holds the coats of those who stoned Stephen. So he's standing there with the coats over his hands as they stone Stephen to death, and he becomes the first martyr in Christianity. Now that's a terrible way to die. That had to have been horrible. I'm sure the first stone didn't do the greatest damage. It was probably the 5th or 6th or maybe 15th that finally took Steve down. But I look at those two men, and see the truthfulness of living for God. I think of Paul and Silas and thrown into jail, and they faced even a higher calling in the sense that they were cast into a prison that was meant for men who had broken laws, and they considered Paul and Silas guilty only because they were preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we remember what happened. There's a great earthquake, and the gates are shaken, and Paul and Silas had been preaching, they'd been praying, and literally the prison gates fly open from the shaking of the ground. And the one jailer to whom Paul and Silas had been talking says,